The chess pieces exploded across the sidewalk like shattered dreams. Marcus Brooks, 11 years old and barefoot, watched his grandfather's hand carved king roll into a puddle of dirty water near the Washington Square Park fountain. The queen split in two against the concrete edge. Pawns scattered like fallen soldiers across the pavement that had seen 1,000 games, 1,000 stories, but none quite like what was about to unfold. "Move it, kid." The shout came from a man in a suit that probably cost more than the Brooks family paid in rent for 6 months. The man's briefcase had knocked the board clean out of Marcus's hands as he rushed past without looking, without caring, without even slowing down to see what he had destroyed. To him, Marcus was invisible. Just another poor kid cluttering up the nice part of the city. But Marcus could not move. His hands were still extended in the air, frozen in the exact position they had been when holding his most precious possession. The chess set his grandfather had spent 3 months carving before he died. Before everything fell apart. Before Marcus learned that the world did not care about barefoot kids with broken dreams. The knight, his favorite piece. The one Grandpa James had taken 5 days to perfect because knights are special. Marcus, they jump over obstacles just like you are going to jump over every obstacle life throws at you. Now the knight had its head completely severed from its body. Tears came before Marcus could stop them. Not because of the physical impact. Not because his knees were scraped from falling, but because this chess set was the last thing his grandfather had touched before the heart attack took him 8 months ago. The last tangible proof that James Brooks had existed, had mattered, had loved his grandson enough to spend his final weeks creating something beautiful from nothing. "Oh, sweetheart," a woman's voice cut through the noise of the park. Mrs. Rivera, who sold newspapers from a cart near the fountain, was kneeling beside him despite her 70 years and arthritic knees. "Let me help you, baby." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Rivera," Marcus whispered, wiping tears with the back of his hand and leaving dirt streaks across his cheeks. "I was studying a chess puzzle in my notebook and did not see him coming. I should have moved faster." "You got nothing to apologize for." Mrs. Rivera's voice was firm despite her trembling hands as she helped gather the pieces. That man in his fancy suit did not even look where he was going, did not even stop to see who he hurt. Marcus picked up the broken knight and pressed it against his chest. The wood was warm from the afternoon sun, and he could feel every imperfection where his grandfather's hands had worked. He remembered sitting on this exact bench 3 years ago, watching the old man carve, listening to him explain that each piece had its own personality. "The knight is different from all the others, little man," Grandpa James had said, with those bright eyes that always sparkled when he talked about chess. "It moves in ways they cannot understand, jumps right over their heads. That is going to be you someday, jumping over every obstacle they put in your way." But now the knight was broken, and Marcus did not know how to jump over this. "Come on, help me up." Mrs. Rivera was breathing heavily, the effort of kneeling taking its toll. Marcus supported her arm, feeling the fragile bones beneath her worn jacket. When they were both seated on the bench that had witnessed thousands of games, Mrs. Rivera pulled out an old handkerchief and began cleaning the pieces tenderly. "You know what day it is?" she asked. Marcus shook his head, still staring at the broken knight. 3 years ago exactly. Your grandpa sat on this very bench on his last afternoon and told me something I will never forget." Rivera paused, her cloudy eyes looking into the past. He said, "Ernestine, my grandson is going to be somebody. Do not know how or when, but he has got something special. Chess runs in his veins like it ran in mine. Take care of him when I am gone." Marcus's tears fell onto the wooden knight, darkening the grain. "And I promised him who would," Mrs. Rivera continued, "that I would make sure you kept playing, that the gift God gave you would not be wasted for lack of opportunity." "But what is the point, Mrs. Rivera?" Marcus's voice cracked. "Look where we are. Look at how we live. My mom cleans toilets so we can eat. My dad can barely work because of his back. I play chess in a park because we do not have money for a real school. What does it matter if I am good if nobody sees me?" Mrs. Rivera took Marcus's face between her calloused hands. "Somebody is going to see you, child. And when that day comes, you are going to be ready. That is why you come here every day. That is why you study every game you can find. That is why you play against anyone who will sit with you. Am I wrong? Marcus looked at his bare feet. The shoes his mother had bought with such sacrifice had fallen apart months ago, and there was no money for new ones. He had learned to walk the hot city streets barefoot, developing thick calluses. At first, he had been ashamed. Now it was just his reality. Mrs. Rivera, I lied to Mom today, Marcus confessed. Told her I had to study, but really I wanted to come play. I should have been helping her clean those office buildings. And why did you want to come play? Because. Marcus gripped the broken knight tighter. Because when I move the pieces, when I see the board, when I think 3, 4, 5 moves ahead, I forget I am hungry. I forget I do not have shoes. I forget I heard Mom crying again last night when she thought I was asleep. The confession poured out like a flood, words he had been holding for so long. I forget Dad is angry all the time because he cannot provide for his family. I forget we live in one room where I hear everything through the curtain that separates my mattress from theirs. I forget I am 11 and should be in school, but we had to choose between education and food. And here I am. Mrs. Rivera closed her eyes, feeling the weight of every word. Chess is the only thing I have that is mine. Marcus continued, his voice barely a whisper now. It is the only thing I am good at, where my clothes do not matter, or my feet, or my address. Only the moves matter. Only thinking matters. And now even that is broken. The old woman let silence settle before speaking. Marcus, look at me. The boy raised his dark eyes, bright with unshed tears. Your grandpa taught me something about chess I never forgot. He said the most powerful piece on the board is not the queen, even though she moves in every direction. It is not the rook, even though it is strong, it is the pawn. Marcus frowned. But the pawn is the weakest piece. That is what everyone thinks. Mrs. Rivera smiled. But the pawn is the only piece that can transform. It can become anything if it reaches the other side of the board. Starts as the lowest value piece and ends up being whatever it needs to be to win the game. She picked up one of the pawns, one that had miraculously survived the fall undamaged. You are like this pawn, Marcus, started with no advantages, no money, no connections, no opportunities others have. But you got something all those kids in fancy chess schools do not have. You got hunger, you got determination, and you got a talent that cannot be bought or taught. It is either born in you or it is not. But the board is broken. The board can be fixed. Your spirit, if you let it break, cannot. Mrs. Rivera reached into her newspaper bag and pulled out something wrapped in brown paper. And besides, not everything is lost. Look what I got. She unwrapped it, revealing a small bottle of strong glue. Bought this with what I made selling papers today. Figured you might need to repair a piece sooner or later. Did not know it would be today. Marcus took the glue with shaking hands. Mrs. Rivera, this must have cost exactly what it was worth paying, she interrupted. Now let us fix that knight in all the other pieces. Then you are going to set up your board and wait for an opponent and play like your life depends on it. They spent the next half hour working in silence, carefully gluing each broken piece. The knight got its head back, though the glue line was visible. Some pawns recovered their broken corners. It was not perfect, but it was functional, like this knight. Mrs. Rivera held the repaired piece up to the fading afternoon light. We all got scars, but scars just prove we survived something that could have destroyed us. Marcus carefully arranged the board on the cardboard he always used. The board itself was old, squares hand-painted by his grandfather because they could not afford a real one. Some squares were worn, colors faded from sun and rain, from so many afternoons in the park. You think anyone will play today? Marcus asked, looking at the nearly empty park. It was almost 6 o'clock, the time when workers usually passed through on their way home. There is always someone willing to face the Washington Square Park champion. Mrs. Rivera winked, though most regretted after the first move. Marcus could not help a small smile. Since learning chess 3 years ago, he had played against hundreds of opponents in this park. Construction workers on lunch breaks, board office workers, college students who thought beating a kid would be easy. He had only lost 3 times, all against much older players with years of experience. The park was his academy, his tournament, his world. What Marcus did not know was that 2 blocks away, at that exact moment, a black Mercedes was navigating slowly through traffic, completely out of place in this part of the city. Inside the car, William Sterling reviewed the message on his phone for the fifth time. Washington Square Park, near the fountain. Look for the kid with the board. If you beat him at chess, you win. If you lose everything. Victor Petrov. William had read the message dozens of times since receiving it that morning. The challenge from Victor Petrov had intrigued him immediately. $100 million in real estate on the line, all depending on a simple chess game against the city's best player. "You sure this is the right place, Jessica?" he asked his secretary, looking out the tinted window at the deteriorating streets. "Victor Petrov was very specific, Mr. Sterling." Jessica Morgan replied, checking her tablet. "Washington Square Park, near the fountain that does not work." William frowned. He was one of the richest real estate developers in New York. His buildings transformed entire neighborhoods. His investments moved millions daily. And now he was being directed to a park in a neighborhood that probably had not seen investment in decades. "This has to be a joke," he muttered. "Victor is playing with me." But the challenge had been clear. If William could defeat the player Victor had identified as the city's best, he would win the rights to property valued at $100 million. Property William had been trying to acquire for years for his most ambitious development. If he lost, well, William did not contemplate losing. He never did. "There is the park, sir," the driver indicated. The car stopped slowly. William observed the scene through the polarized glass. A broken fountain filled with trash and dead leaves. Cracked concrete benches. Some old trees providing uneven shade. And there, by the third bench, a barefoot 11-year-old boy arranging chess pieces on a board that looked handmade. "That is him?" William almost laughed. "The city's best player is a kid?" "Apparently." Jessica observed the scene with a neutral expression, though her eyes showed something like pity. William stepped out of the car, followed by Jessica. His Italian designer shoes hit the broken pavement of the park. His $1,000 suit gleamed in the afternoon sun. His watch was worth more than everything within 3 blocks combined. Several people in the park turned to stare. It was impossible not to. He was like an alien landing in the middle of their daily reality. Marcus looked up from his board, and his eyes met William's. For a second, they just stared at each other. The barefoot boy in patched clothes and the impeccable millionaire. Two completely different worlds sharing the same space. "Excuse me." William approached, his voice carrying that tone he used when speaking to people he considered beneath him. "Do you play chess?" "Yes, sir," Marcus responded, his voice clear but cautious. "Are you any good?" Marcus hesitated. Grandpa had taught him to be humble, but also not to lie. "I am pretty good, sir." William let out a short laugh. "Pretty good. How modest." He turned to Jessica. "This is for real? Victor wants me to play against this kid?" "Apparently, Mr. Sterling," Jessica repeated. Mrs. Rivera, who had been watching silently from her newspaper cart, approached slowly. She recognized William immediately. His face appeared in the papers she sold almost weekly. News of his deals, his investments, his extravagant parties. "Mr. Sterling," she greeted with courtesy but not servility. "What brings you to our humble neighborhood?" William barely looked at her. "Business. I was told I would find a good chess player here." "You found the best," Mrs. Rivera put a protective hand on Marcus's shoulder. "My boy here has not lost a game in months." "Your boy?" William looked at Marcus with new interest, but not the positive kind. It was the look he reserved for things he considered curiosities, not real threats. "How old are you?" 11, sir," Marcus answered. 11 years old," William repeated, savoring the words. A smile began forming on his face. "Perfect. Then I will not feel bad when I win." He sat on the bench across from Marcus without waiting for invitation, moving with the confidence of someone accustomed to the world accommodating him, not the other way around. "Let us play," he ordered more than proposed. "But this board is unacceptable. Jessica, bring mine from the car." "That is not necessary, sir," Marcus said quickly. "This board works perfectly fine." "I was not asking your opinion, kid." William's response had that casual cruelty that showed years of practice at making people feel small. "If we are going to play, we will use a proper board, not this primitive craftsmanship." The word came out like an insult. Marcus felt the blow as if it were physical. Grandpa had spent weeks carving that board, painting each square carefully, creating something with love because they did not have money to buy a real one. Jessica returned from the car carrying a polished wooden board with marble pieces. It was beautiful, professional, probably cost more than everything Marcus's family owned combined. She placed it in the space between the two players. The contrast was brutal. The elegant board on top of the dirty cardboard Marcus used as a base, the marble pieces next to the homemade board now relegated to the side like trash. Much better. William arranged the pieces with precise movements, showing experience. Now, before we start, let us make this interesting. Do you have anything to bet, kid? Marcus looked at Mrs. Rivera, confused. He has got nothing to bet, Mr. Sterling. The old woman intervened. He is just a child. Then there is no game. William started to stand. I do not play without stakes. Not worth my time. Wait, Marcus spoke before thinking. What do you want to bet? William studied him like a predator evaluating prey. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Victor Petrov. Make it worth your while. If he beats you, pay him what that property is worth to you. William smiled cruelly. The kid would never win. This would be entertaining. Tell you what, kid, since you are so confident, let us make this real. He leaned back, arms crossed. If I win, you admit in front of everyone here that you are not as good as you think. That barefoot kids from the Bronx do not belong in the same world as people like me. The words hit Marcus like a slap. Several people in the growing crowd gasped. And if I win? Marcus's voice trembled. William laughed loudly. If you win? If by some impossible miracle you beat me? He paused for effect. I will give you $100 million. The park went silent. Someone dropped their coffee cup. It shattered on the pavement, but nobody noticed. What? Marcus whispered. You heard me? 100 million. Kish. William pulled out his phone. Jessica, prepare a contract, witnessed and recorded. When I beat this kid, I want it documented. Sir, are you certain? Jessica began. Do it, William snapped. Mrs. Rivera grabbed Marcus's shoulder. Baby, you do not have to do this. I accept, Marcus said clearly. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. $100 million. His mom would never have to clean another toilet. His dad could get the surgery he needed. They could have a real home. Jessica typed rapidly on her tablet, then showed it to both players. This constitutes an agreement witnessed by... She looked around at the crowd, which had grown to about 40 people, all with phones out recording. Approximately 40 witnesses and documented on video. Mr. William Sterling agrees to pay Marcus Brooks $100 million if Marcus wins this chess match. Sign here. Both signed it on the tablet screen. The crowd murmured with excitement and disbelief. This was insane. This was impossible. This was about to go viral. Your move, kid, William said with a smirk. Let us get this over with. Marcus moved his pawn, e4, the king's pawn opening, Grandpa's favorite. William responded instantly, e5, classical. The game began. For the first 10 moves, William played with casual confidence, barely thinking. He was good. Marcus could tell immediately. Better than most opponents he faced in the park. The man had training, experience, probably played in corporate tournaments. But by move 15, something changed. William's smirk faded. He was thinking longer between moves. His fingers drummed on the bench. Marcus was playing moves he had never seen before. Combinations that seemed to come from nowhere. The crowd had gone completely silent, watching the board like it was a religious ceremony. Move 20. Marcus sacrificed his bishop. Mistake, William muttered, taking the piece. But his hand trembled slightly. Move 21. Marcus's knight jumped. That weird L-shaped move that Grandpa had taught him to love. The move that could jump over obstacles. Move 22. Marcus's queen slid into position. William stared at the board. His face went pale. He saw it now, the trap. The beautiful, impossible trap that had been building for 12 moves. No matter what he did, he was finished in 3 moves. 4 at most. This is not... William's voice cracked. Check, Marcus said softly. William's king moved. The only legal move available. Check, Marcus repeated, his rook this time. William's king moved again. Boxed in. Nowhere to run. Checkmate, Marcus whispered. The park exploded. People were screaming, crying, jumping. Mrs. Rivera had both hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Strangers were hugging each other. Phones were recording everything. Marcus sat frozen, staring at the board. He had won. He had actually won against one of the richest men in New York for $100 million. William stared at the board like it had betrayed him. His face cycled through shock, disbelief, then something ugly, rage. "Mr. Sterling," Jessica said quietly. "The contract." "Shut up," William snapped. He stood abruptly, knocking the marble board. Pieces scattered across the bench. "This is ridiculous. I am not paying $100 million to a street kid based on a game in a park." The crowd's celebration died instantly. "But you signed," Marcus said, his voice small. "Everyone saw. It is on video." "You think I care about videos?" William's voice was ice cold now. "You think any judge will enforce a verbal contract with a child? You are 11 years old. You cannot even sign a legal document." "But you said—" "I said a lot of things. Doesn't mean I have to pay." William straightened his tie. "Jessica, we are leaving. And if anyone posts those videos online, my lawyers will bury them in lawsuits. You cannot do this." Mrs. Rivera stepped forward, her voice shaking with fury. "You made a promise in front of all these people." "Watch me," William said flatly. He looked at Marcus with cold contempt. "Let this be a lesson, kid. The world is not fair. People like me make promises to people like you and break them because we can. That is how power works." He turned to walk away. "My grandfather was right about people like you." Marcus said loud enough for everyone to hear. Tears were streaming down his face now, but his voice was steady. He said some people get so rich they forget they are human, that they stop seeing other people as real. I did not believe him. I thought if I was good enough, if I worked hard enough, people would keep their word. William stopped walking, but did not turn around. "You are not just breaking a promise," Marcus continued. "You are telling every kid like me that we do not matter, that our talent does not matter, that we can do everything right and still lose because people like you decide we are not worth keeping promises to." The crowd was silent. Every word was being recorded by 40 phones. William turned slowly. "You are right, I am telling you that, because it is the truth. Welcome to the real world, kid." He walked to his Mercedes without looking back. Jessica hesitated, looking at Marcus with something that might have been shame, then followed her boss. The car drove away, leaving Marcus standing in the park, surrounded by people who had witnessed everything, holding a broken chess set and a broken promise. Mrs. Rivera pulled him into a hug. "Oh, baby, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." But Marcus could not cry anymore. He felt numb, empty. He had done everything right, played perfectly, won fairly. And it had not mattered, because William Sterling had been right about one thing: the world was not fair. Someone in the crowd spoke up. "I got the whole thing on video, every second. That man cannot hide from this." "Me too," said another voice. "I am posting this right now." Someone else said, "The whole city needs to see what he did." Within minutes, the videos were uploading, spreading, going viral. But Marcus did not know that yet. All he knew was that he had won the game and lost everything anyway. He picked up his grandfather's broken knight from where it had fallen and held it tight against his chest. "I am sorry, Grandpa," he whispered. "I tried. I really tried." Mrs. Rivera looked at the crowd, at the phone still recording, at the anger on people's faces. She did not know it yet, but the war had just begun. William Sterling thought he could walk away from this. He was about to learn he was very, very wrong. The video hit 1 million views in 3 hours. Diana Brooks was on her knees scrubbing the bathroom floor of a Wall Street law firm when her phone would not stop buzzing. She ignored it at first. Her boss had made it clear that personal calls during work hours meant termination. But the buzzing continued. 10 messages. 20. 50. Finally, during her mandated 5-minute break, she checked. The first message was from a number she did not recognize. "Is this Marcus Brooks's mother? You need to see this." Attached was a video link. Diana's hands were shaking as she pressed play. The bucket of dirty mop water beside her, forgotten. There was her son, her beautiful, brilliant boy, sitting at a chessboard in Washington Square Park, his bare feet dusty, his patched jeans torn at the knee. And across from him sat William Sterling, a man whose face she had seen on the sides of buildings in newspapers, on billboards, advertising luxury developments she would never be able to afford. She watched her 11-year-old son beat one of the richest men in New York. She watched the crowd erupt in celebration. She watched William Sterling refuse to pay. The phone slipped from Diana's wet hands and clattered on the tile floor. She did not notice. She could only hear one thing. Her son's voice breaking as he said, "I am sorry, Grandpa. I tried." Mrs. Brooks, her supervisor's sharp voice cut through the fog. "Your break ended 2 minutes ago. Get back to work." "I have to go," Diana said, already pulling off her rubber gloves. "If you leave now, you are fired." Diana looked at the woman who had never learned her first name in 3 years of employment. The woman who had made her work through a fever last month because cleaning does not require being healthy. "Then I am fired." She ran. Across town, Thomas Brooks was selling newspapers at a subway entrance, his back screaming with every bend. The surgery he needed cost more than the family could save in 5 years. So he stood there 12 hours a day calling out headlines to people who walked past like he was invisible. His phone rang. "Thomas, where are you?" Diana's voice was frantic, breathless. 42nd Street Station. "What is wrong?" "Is Marcus—" "He is fine. He is—" "Thomas, you need to see this. Our son just beat William Sterling at chess for $100 million and Sterling will not pay." Thomas thought he had misheard. "What? I'm sending you the video. Watch it. Then meet me at the park." Now, the video loaded on Thomas's cracked phone screen. He watched it once, twice, 3 times. By the third viewing, there were tears running down his face. His son, his brilliant, beautiful son, had done the impossible, and the world had broken his promise anyway. A businessman walking past stopped. "Hey, you are that kid's dad, aren't you? From the video?" Thomas looked up, startled. "That is messed up, what Sterling did." The man continued. "I shared it with everyone I know. That guy is going to pay for breaking his word." Before Thomas could respond, the man walked away. But others were stopping now, pointing, whispering. Someone had recognized him. The video was everywhere. In the park, Marcus sat on the bench where he had played thousands of games. Mrs. Rivera had convinced him not to leave. "Baby, you stay right here. This is not over." But Marcus felt hollowed out, numb. People kept approaching. Strangers, some crying, some angry. All of them had seen the video. "You were robbed, kid." A construction worker, still in his hard hat. "My daughter is your age. What he did to you made me sick. I am a lawyer, a woman in a business suit. Pro bono. You call me." She handed him a business card. The cards piled up on the bench beside him. Offers of help from people whose faces he had never seen before this afternoon. Then the news vans arrived. 3 of them. Local stations, then a national network. A reporter approached, microphone extended, cameraman in tow. "Marcus Brooks, I am Jennifer Walker from News 4. Can I ask you a few questions?" Marcus looked at Mrs. Rivera, who nodded. "How do you feel right now?" Jennifer asked, her voice gentle. "Confused." Marcus said honestly, "I won fair. Everyone saw. I do not understand why winning does not matter. What would you say to Mr. Sterling if he was here?" Marcus thought carefully. Grandpa had always said anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. "I would ask him if his word means anything," Marcus said quietly, "because my grandpa taught me that a person is only as good as their promises. And if promises do not mean anything when you are rich, then what is the point of being rich?" The question hung in the air. Simple, devastating, unanswerable. Jennifer's eyes were wet. She was not the only one. The cameraman was wiping his face. The interview went live. Within minutes, it was being shared across every platform. Diana arrived at the park running, still wearing her cleaning uniform. She pushed through the crowd and grabbed Marcus, pulling him into a fierce hug. "Baby, are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I am fine, Mom. Marcus's voice broke. "I won. I really won." And he still, "I know, sweetheart. I know." Diana held him tighter, and finally Marcus let himself cry. Not the silent tears from before. Real sobbing. The kind that came from somewhere deep. Thomas arrived moments later, limping heavily. The run from the subway had aggravated his back, but he did not care. He wrapped his arms around his wife and son. I am so proud of you, Thomas whispered into Marcus's hair. So incredibly proud, but it did not matter. Marcus sobbed. I did everything right, and it did not matter. It matters, Thomas said firmly. You showed the whole city what you are made of, what our family is made of. That matters more than money. Does it? Marcus pulled back, looking at his father. Mom just lost her job coming here. Your back is getting worse every day. We still live in one room. What does it matter if I am good at chess if nothing changes? The question broke Thomas's heart because he did not have an answer. But Mrs. Rivera did. Baby, she said, kneeling in front of Marcus despite her protesting knees. Your grandpa used to say something I never understood until today. He said the most important victories are the ones that happen after you think you have lost. I do not understand. You will. She pointed to the cameras, to the crowd, to the phones all recording. Right now, millions of people are watching what happened to you. And they are angry, not just for you, for every time they have been cheated, every time someone with power broke a promise to someone without it. She took his hands. You did not just win a chess game today. You started something bigger, something that scares people like William Sterling because they cannot control it. As if on cue, someone in the crowd shouted, "It is trending. Justice for Marcus is trending nationwide." Another voice. Sterling's company stock dropped 4% in the last hour. His business partners are releasing statements distancing themselves. The information flowed through the crowd like electricity. The video had exploded beyond anything anyone expected. It was not just New York anymore. It was national, international. A well-dressed woman pushed through the crowd. Mr. and Mrs. Brooks, I am Patricia Morgan, attorney at Morgan and Associates. I have been following this situation, and I would like to offer my services pro bono. What Mr. Sterling did was legally actionable. We cannot afford, Diana started. Pro bono means free, Patricia interrupted gently. I am offering because what happened to your son is unconscionable. And because I have a daughter his age who deserves to live in a world where promises matter. Before Diana could respond, another person stepped forward. I am David Chen. I run a tech startup. I would like to donate $20,000 to the Brooks family today. No strings. I will match that. Someone else called out. Me too. Within 5 minutes, strangers had pledged over $200,000. Diana could not breathe. This was not real. This could not be happening. But it was. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from someone named Victor Petrov. The subject line read, about your son's extraordinary talent. She opened it. Mrs. Brooks, I am the one who arranged today's match. I have been watching Marcus play for 2 years. Your son is a genuine prodigy. I set up this situation knowing Sterling would likely break his promise. I needed the world to see both Marcus's talent and Sterling's character. I apologize for the pain this caused, but I believe what happens next will change your family's life. We should meet. Victor Petrov, International Chess Federation. Diana showed Thomas the email. They both stared at it, trying to process. He planned this, Thomas whispered. He set up Marcus to be humiliated. No, Mrs. Rivera said, reading over their shoulders. He set up Sterling to be exposed. Big difference. Jennifer Walker was back, this time with a camera crew from a national network. Mrs. Brooks, we would like to do a longer interview. Your son's story is resonating with people across the country. Parents are showing the video to their children. Teachers are using it in classrooms. This is bigger than chess. Diana looked at Marcus, who looked exhausted and overwhelmed. Not today, she said firmly. My son has been through enough. We need time to process this as a family. Of course, Jennifer handed Diana a card. But when you are ready, please call. The world wants to hear Marcus's voice. As the sun set over Washington Square Park, the Brooks family sat together on the bench where everything had changed. The crowd had dispersed, but the cameras remained at a respectful distance. What do we do now? Marcus asked quietly. Thomas pulled his son close. We go home, we eat dinner, we figure out tomorrow when it comes. But what about Mr. Sterling? What about the money? Diana smiled sadly. Baby, I do not know if you will ever see that $100 million. Rich men like him have ways of avoiding consequences. But you know what? We are going to be okay anyway. How? Because the whole world saw what you can do. Because opportunities are coming that we never imagined. Because your talent is not invisible anymore. She kissed his forehead. And because sometimes the real victory is not the prize you were promised. It is the doors that open when people finally see you. Marcus nodded, not entirely convinced, but too tired to argue. They walked home together through Manhattan streets where strangers now recognized them. Through a city that had watched their son's heartbreak and decided it mattered. What they did not know, what they could not know yet, was that at that exact moment, William Sterling was sitting in his penthouse, watching his world collapse on live television. His phone was exploding with angry calls from investors, partners, board members, 247 missed calls. He had stopped answering after the first 50. William sat in the dark, a glass of scotch in his hand, watching the news coverage on mute. His own face filled the screen, then Marcus's, then the chessboard, then the moment he walked away. Over and over and over, the bottle of scotch was half empty. It had not helped, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw that kid's face. Marcus Brooks, 11 years old, barefoot, holding that broken chess piece like it was made of gold instead of wood, saying, "I am sorry, Grandpa. I tried." William poured another glass. His laptop was open on the couch, frozen on a news article. The headline made him sick. Billionaire breaks promise to struggling chess prodigy. The heartbreak heard round the world. He clicked to another tab. Twitter. The trending topics made him close his eyes. Justice for Marcus. 50 million tweets in 12 hours. William Sterling pays. Keep your word. Boycott Sterling. His company's official account had been bombarded with so many messages they had to disable comments. His personal Instagram, private, or so he thought, had somehow been found. Thousands of people were flooding it with photos of Marcus's face. The chessboard. Screenshots of the contract Jessica had drawn up. "You should see what they are saying about you." Jessica's voice came from the doorway. She had let herself in using the key he had given her for emergencies. "I do not want to know," William said without turning. "Too bad." Jessica walked to the couch and sat down uninvited. "Your board of directors called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. 3 of your major investors have pulled out. The city council is reviewing every permit you have for ongoing construction projects." She paused. "And your mother called." That made William turn. "My mother, she is in Florida, saw the video." She said, and I quote, "Tell my son I did not raise him to be a liar and a bully." Then she hung up. The words hit harder than any business loss. His mother, Elena Sterling, who had worked as a seamstress for 30 years to put him through school, who taught him that a handshake meant something, that your word was your bond. When had he forgotten that? "There is more," Jessica continued. "Viktor Petrov released a statement. He admitted he orchestrated the whole thing, said he has been watching Marcus for 2 years, knew he was a prodigy, set up the match specifically to expose you." "Expose me?" William's voice was hollow. His exact words were, "William Sterling needed to be reminded that wealth without integrity is just expensive emptiness. I apologize to young Marcus for using him as the instrument of that lesson, but I do not apologize for the lesson itself." William laughed bitterly. "So this was a setup from the beginning. Does that make you feel better?" Jessica asked. "That you were manipulated into showing the world who you really are?" "Who I really am," William repeated. He looked at his reflection in the dark window. Designer suit even at midnight. Watch worth $60,000. Apartment worth $12 million. And somehow the poorest kid in New York had more dignity than he did. "There is something else you should know," Jessica said quietly. "The video of Marcus's mother arriving at the park is going viral now too. She is still wearing her cleaning uniform. People found out she got fired for leaving work to check on her son." "Great." William drained his glass. "So now I am responsible for her unemployment too." "You are not responsible for that," Jessica corrected. "But you are responsible for breaking your promise to her son. And the internet has decided that makes you a villain." William stood abruptly, walking to the window. Down below, Central Park was dark except for the scattered streetlights. Somewhere in the city, that kid was probably sleeping on a mattress on the floor in a single room he shared with his parents. And William was standing in a penthouse that cost more per month than most people made in a year. "What do I do?" he asked. The question surprised him as much as Jessica. "You already know what you have to do. I cannot just hand $100 million to an 11-year-old. Why not? Jessica challenged. You were willing to risk it when you thought you would win. That was different. I did not think I would actually lose. So you only keep promises when losing is impossible. Jessica stood, gathering her things. I have worked for you for 8 years, William. I have watched you build an empire. I have admired your business sense, your strategy, your vision. But tonight I am ashamed to work for you. The words stung more than they should have. If you do not fix this, Jessica continued, you are not the man I thought you were, and I cannot work for someone I do not respect. She walked to the door, then paused. By the way, the Brooks family received over $400,000 in donations tonight from strangers, people who saw what happened and decided to do what you would not. Keep a promise to a child who deserved better. After Jessica left, William sat in the dark for a long time. $400,000 from strangers. He had spent more than that on his car. His phone buzzed. Against his better judgment, he looked. An email from his lawyer, Gerald Morrison. William, we need to talk urgently. The agreement Jessica created puts you at serious legal risk. With multiple witnesses and video documentation, your position is extremely weak. If the Brooks family sues and they now have pro bono representation, you are likely to lose. Court costs, legal fees, and reputational damage could far exceed the $100 million. My advice, settle immediately, show remorse, rebuild trust, or prepare for catastrophic fallout. William deleted the email. Then he pulled it back from trash and read it again. Lose everything. Was that even possible? He had built this empire from nothing? Well, not nothing. His mother's sacrifices, his father's life insurance after he died from a construction accident, the same kind of accident that had probably ruined Thomas Brooks's back. William pulled out his phone and did something he had not done in years. He searched for his father's name. Roberto Sterling, construction worker, died age 38 when safety equipment failed on a midtown high-rise project. The company had settled with his widow for barely enough to cover funeral costs. William had been 12, the same age Marcus would be in a few months. He had sworn then that he would never be powerless like his father, never be the person who got crushed by the system. He had become the system instead. But somewhere along the way, he had become the person who crushed others. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost did not answer. Mr. Sterling, a man's voice. Older? Cultured. This is Victor Petrov. I believe we need to talk. You have got some nerve calling me, William said. You set me up. I gave you an opportunity. Victor corrected. What you did with it was entirely your choice. I expected you to refuse the bet, actually. Walk away. But you made it bigger. $100 million. That was your ego, not mine. What do you want? To offer you something you do not deserve but desperately need. A chance at redemption. William almost hung up. I am listening. Tomorrow at noon, there is going to be a press conference. The Brooks family, their lawyers, several advocacy groups, they are going to announce their intention to sue you for the full 100 million plus damages. I know. My lawyers already told me. What your lawyers did not tell you, Victor continued, is that if you show up at that press conference, publicly apologize, and announce you are honoring the contract, the lawsuit disappears. More importantly, you get the opportunity to explain why you initially refused. Why would I want to explain that? Because right now, the narrative is that you are a heartless billionaire who crushes poor children for sport. If you tell your story, your real story, about your father, about how you built your empire, about how you lost your way, people might understand. They might even forgive. I do not need forgiveness from strangers. No, Victor agreed, but you need it from yourself, and you definitely need it from that boy. William was quiet for a long moment. Why do you care what happens to me? I do not particularly, Victor said honestly, but I care what happens to Marcus. That child has a gift that comes along once in a generation. He could be a grandmaster by 15 if he has the right training, the right support. But right now he is crushed. He won the game but feels like he lost everything. He needs to see that doing the right thing matters, that integrity wins eventually. So I am supposed to be his object lesson in redemption. You are supposed to be a man who keeps his word, Victor said, Everything else is just details. After Victor hung up, William sat with the phone in his hand for a long time. Tomorrow at noon, he could show up, apologize, pay the money, become the story of the reformed billionaire who learned humility from a poor child. Or he could fight it in court, drag it out for years, maybe win on some technicality his lawyers would find. He pulled up the video again, the one that had been viewed 50 million times now. This time he did not watch himself. He watched Marcus. The way the boy's hands trembled when he made his moves, the careful precision with which he handled the pieces, the moment of pure joy when he won. 3 seconds of happiness before William crushed it with his refusal to pay. And then that speech, that devastating simple question. If promises do not mean anything when you are rich, then what is the point of being rich? William had spent 20 years answering that question with more money, bigger buildings, greater power. But sitting alone in his penthouse at 3 in the morning, watching a video of himself destroying a child's dreams, he realized he had been answering it wrong the whole time. His mother had been right. The internet had been right. Jessica had been right. He had become exactly the kind of person he had hated when he was 12 years old and powerless. William opened his laptop and began typing an email to Jessica. Clear my schedule for tomorrow. Arrange a car to the Bronx Community Center. Noon. I have a press conference to attend. He hit send before he could change his mind. Then he sat back and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow he would face the consequences of his choices. Tomorrow he would try to be the man his father had believed he could be. Tomorrow he would learn if sorry was enough. But even as the thought formed, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered the question he could not answer. Was he doing this because it was right? Or because he had been caught? Did the reason even matter? Across the city, in a small room in a homeless shelter, Marcus lay awake on his mattress, listening to his parents whisper on the other side of the curtain. $400,000, his mother was saying. Thomas, do you understand? Complete strangers gave us $400,000. I know. His father's voice was thick with emotion. People we will never meet saw what happened and decided to help. We can move. Get a real apartment. You can have your surgery. Marcus can go to a real school. A pause, then Thomas spoke again. But it is not the same, is it? It is not what he won. It is not what he was promised. No, Diana agreed softly. It is not. Marcus closed his eyes, pretending to sleep, even though he had heard every word. His mother was right. The money from strangers was kind. It was generous. It was more than they had ever hoped for. But it was not the same as William Sterling keeping his word. Because Marcus had not beaten strangers at chess. He had beaten one of the richest men in New York. And that man had looked him in the eye and said, promises do not matter when you have power. If that was true, then what was the point of being good? Of working hard? Of believing that talent and effort and integrity meant something? Marcus touched the broken knight he kept beside his pillow. Grandpa's voice echoed in his memory. The pawn becomes whatever it needs to become to win. But what did winning even mean if the other person could just change the rules? Tomorrow would bring answers. Tomorrow, the press conference. Tomorrow, the world watching. Tomorrow, William Sterling would have to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. And Marcus Brooks would learn whether the world his grandfather believed in, the one where promises mattered and hard work was rewarded and doing the right thing meant something, whether that world actually existed. Or if it had just been a beautiful lie to help a poor kid sleep at night. The emergency board meeting convened at 9 in the morning. William Sterling sat at the head of the conference table, knowing this would be his last time in this chair. 8 board members stared back at him. Richard Blackwood occupied the opposite end, satisfaction barely concealed beneath his concerned expression. The numbers glowed on the screen behind Richard. Stock down 18%. 3 major contracts terminated. 7 investors withdrawn. Public relations crisis categorized as catastrophic. Gentlemen, Richard began, his voice carrying false sympathy, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders. Mr. Sterling's personal crisis has become a corporate liability we can no longer afford. Personal crisis? William's voice was quiet. Richard clicked to the next slide. The video, Marcus's face frozen in that moment of heartbreak. 50 million views and climbing. This is not personal, William, Richard continued. This is about protecting Sterling Corporation from leadership that has demonstrated catastrophically poor judgment. William looked around the table. Men he had worked with for 15 years. Some would not meet his eyes. Others looked relieved someone else was doing the dirty work. I move that we remove William Sterling as Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately, Richard said. All in favor? 7 hands rose, slowly. But they rose, the motion passes. Richard's smile was professional, but his eyes gleamed with victory. Mr. Sterling, security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your access will be terminated within the hour. William stood. He could fight this, call lawyers, drag it out for months. But looking at these men, at the company he had built becoming something he no longer recognized, he realized something unexpected. He felt relief. You know what, Richard? William said, his voice steady. You are doing me a favor. Richard frowned. Excuse me? I spent 20 years building this company. 20 years thinking it was everything. He gestured to the screen, still showing Marcus's face. That kid taught me more about what matters in one afternoon than I learned in 2 decades in this room. William walked to the door, then turned back one last time. Enjoy the office, Richard. I hope it makes you happy, because I can tell you from experience, it will not. The door closed behind him. William Sterling was no longer a CEO, and for the first time in 20 years, he felt free. 3 hours later, William stood outside the Bronx Community Center. Jessica Morgan stood beside him, carrying a leather folder. After walking out last night, she had returned at dawn. His email had been simple. You were right. I was wrong. Help me do this right. She had come back. Not as an employee, as a witness to redemption. Ready? She asked. William looked at the building, at the reporters already gathering. At the chance to become someone his father would have been proud of. Yes, he said. I am ready. The press conference was scheduled for noon, but by 11:30, over 200 people had packed into the Bronx Community Center. News cameras lined the back wall. Reporters occupied every seat. And in the front row, looking small and overwhelmed, sat Marcus Brooks between his parents. He was wearing the only clean shirt he owned. His feet were still bare. The donated shoes felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. Mrs. Rivera sat behind them, one hand resting protectively on Marcus's shoulder. He is not coming, Diana whispered to Thomas. It is almost noon and there is no sign of him. Maybe that is for the best, Thomas replied, though his voice carried disappointment. We do not need his money. We have enough now to... It is not about the money, Marcus said quietly. Both parents looked at him. It is about whether promises mean anything. Before anyone could respond, a murmur rippled through the crowd. William Sterling had entered through the side door. He looked different. No designer suit today. Just dark slacks and a white button-down shirt. No expensive watch. His hair was not perfectly styled. He looked like a man who had not slept, who had spent the night wrestling with demons and was not sure he had won. Jessica Morgan walked beside him, carrying the leather folder. The room fell absolutely silent as William made his way to the front. Every camera focused on him. Every phone started recording. He stopped 3 feet from where Marcus sat. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. The billionaire and the barefoot kid. The man who had broken his word and the boy who had believed promises mattered. Marcus, William said finally. His voice cracked slightly. I owe you an apology. He knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with the boy. The cameras captured every second. 2 days ago, I made you a promise in front of witnesses. On camera. In writing. And when you won, when you beat me fairly, brilliantly, I broke that promise. William paused, collecting himself. I told myself it was because you were just a kid, that the bet was not legally binding, that I did not really have to pay. The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. But the truth is simpler and uglier than that. I broke my promise because I could, because I have spent 20 years believing that power means never having to face consequences, that wealth puts you above keeping your word to people who cannot fight back. He pulled an envelope from his pocket, a simple white envelope that somehow looked heavy. My father died when I was 12, William said. Construction accident, safety equipment failure. The company paid my mother barely enough to bury him. I swore then I would never be powerless like he was. His voice dropped. But somewhere along the way, I became the person who makes other people powerless. I became exactly what I hated. Dinah's hand found Thomas's. They were both crying silently. Marcus, you asked me a question that I have not been able to stop thinking about. You asked, if promises do not mean anything when you are rich, what is the point of being rich? William smiled sadly. I did not have an answer then. I'm not sure I have a good one now. But I know what the answer is not. The point of wealth is not to escape being human. It is not to stop having to keep your word. He opened the envelope and pulled out a certified check. $100 million. The number was so large it seemed unreal. People gasped. Cameras zoomed in. This is yours, William said, extending it toward Marcus. You won it fair and square. But more than that, his voice broke completely now. You taught me something I had forgotten. That dignity has nothing to do with bank accounts. That an 11-year-old kid with broken chess pieces has more integrity than I have shown in a decade. Marcus stared at the check. His hands did not move to take it. Why, he asked simply. Why now? Because everyone is watching? Because you will lose more if you do not pay? The question was devastating in its honesty. William closed his eyes briefly. Honestly? Both those things are true. Yes, I am paying because the world is watching. Yes, I am paying because my lawyer said I would lose everything if I did not. He opened his eyes, looking directly at Marcus. But I am also paying because last night at 3 in the morning, I watched the video of our game 50 times. And I finally saw what everyone else saw. A brilliant kid who deserved better than what I gave him. He set the check on the table in front of Marcus. I cannot undo what I said. I cannot take back walking away from you. All I can do is keep the promise I should have kept 2 days ago. And hope that maybe, someday, you will believe that people can change. Marcus looked at his parents. Diana nodded, tears streaming. Thomas squeezed his son's hand. Slowly, Marcus reached out and took the check. The room erupted in applause. People were standing, cheering, crying, but Marcus barely heard it. He was looking at the number. $100 million, more money than he had ever imagined existing in one place. Mr. Sterling, Marcus said, loud enough to cut through the noise. The room quieted instantly. Can I ask you something? Anything. Will you teach me? William blinked. Teach you what? Chess, Marcus said. You are good, really good. I won, but it was close. And Grandpa always said you learn more from opponents who push you. He paused. I do not have a grandpa anymore. But maybe you need to remember why you love chess before you used it to hurt people. The offer hung in the air like something precious and fragile. William's eyes filled with tears. I would be honored. He extended his hand. Marcus shook it. And in that moment, with cameras recording and the world watching, something shifted. Not just for them, but for everyone witnessing it. Because they had all seen the broken promise. They had all felt the injustice. But now they were seeing something rarer. A powerful person admitting they were wrong. A child offering forgiveness he did not have to give. A second chance being earned, not demanded. There is one more thing, William said, addressing the room now. The $400,000 that strangers donated to the Brooks family? I am matching it. $800,000 total, going into a foundation for children like Marcus. Kids with extraordinary talent who need support. He looked at Victor Petrov, who had been standing quietly in the corner. Professor Petrov will run it. Jessica will manage it. And every dollar will go to making sure no other brilliant kid has to play chess in a park with broken pieces because the world did not see them. Mrs. Rivera stood up, applauding. Then everyone was standing again. But this time it felt different. Not celebratory. Sacred. As the press conference ended and people began filing out, Marcus stayed seated, staring at the check in his hands. Baby, Dinah knelt beside him. You okay? Mom, is this real? Did this actually happen? Thomas joined them, wrapping both his wife and son in his arms. It is real, buddy. You did it. We all won, Marcus corrected, looking around at the crowd that had supported them. The strangers who donated, Mrs. Rivera who believed, Victor Petrov who planned, and even William Sterling, who finally did the right thing. Later, as they left the community center, reporters shouting questions, Marcus felt something he had not felt in the 2 days since the game. Hope. Not because of the money, though that would change everything, But because the world he had stopped believing in, the one where promises mattered and doing right eventually won, that world had proven itself real, imperfect, delayed, requiring public pressure and viral videos and lawyers and strangers donating, but real. As they walked through the Bronx streets, Marcus pulled the broken knight from his pocket, the one with the visible glue line. "What are you going to do with the chess set now?" Diana asked. Marcus smiled. "Keep it. The broken pieces are my favorite part. They remind me that things can break and still be valuable, that scars do not mean you are worthless." He looked back once at the community center where William was still talking to reporters, still apologizing, still trying to become someone better than who he had been. "Sometimes," Marcus said quietly, "the pawn makes it to the other side of the board, and sometimes the king learns he is not as powerful as he thought." His parents exchanged glances over his head. Their son had won $100 million, but more importantly, he had kept his soul. And in a world that often rewarded cruelty over kindness, that was worth more than any check could ever be. But the story was not over yet. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in Washington Square Park at the exact bench where everything had changed. This time, he was not alone. William Sterling sat across from him, studying the same hand-carved board that he had once dismissed as unacceptable craftsmanship. Now he handled the pieces with reverence, especially the knight with the visible glue line running through its neck. "Your move," Marcus said softly. William moved his bishop. It was a good move. Better than 3 weeks ago. They had been meeting every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. At first, cameras had followed them everywhere. News crews wanting to document the billionaire's redemption. But William had refused all interviews. "This is not a photo op," he told them. "This is a debt I am paying." Eventually, the cameras left. Now it was just two people playing chess, teacher and student, though neither was entirely sure who was teaching whom. "Check," Marcus announced, his rook sliding into position. William smiled. "I walked right into that, didn't I? You were thinking 2 moves ahead. You need to think 5, like your grandfather taught you." "Yeah." Marcus touched the broken knight, "like my grandpa taught me." Mrs. Rivera approached with 2 bottles of water. She had officially retired from selling newspapers last week. The foundation William created had hired her as its community outreach director. "How is the game going?" she asked. "He is destroying me," William admitted. "Again." "Good," Mrs. Rivera said with satisfaction. "Keeps you humble." Across the park, construction crews were building something new. A permanent chess pavilion funded by Williams Foundation. 20 marble tables with built-in boards. Free lessons every afternoon. Already 40 kids had enrolled. Diana and Thomas arrived holding hands. Thomas walked without limping now. The back surgery 2 weeks ago had been successful. Diana was wearing professional clothes, studying for her GED. She had decided she wanted to be a social worker, helping other families navigate the systems that had nearly crushed hers. "Ready to go, sweetheart?" Diana called. "5 more minutes, Mom?" She smiled. They had heard that phrase a lot lately. 5 more minutes had become Marcus's favorite request. 5 more minutes playing chess. 5 more minutes at his new school. 5 more minutes doing homework in their new apartment with actual separate bedrooms. "Checkmate," Marcus said gently. William studied the board, then laughed. "I never saw it coming." "You will eventually." Marcus started putting the pieces away carefully. "Grandpa used to say, the best players see the whole board, not just their pieces. Your grandfather was a wise man." "He was." Marcus paused. "He would have liked you. The you are becoming, I mean." The words hit William harder than any checkmate ever could. As they stood to leave, a young girl approached shyly. Maybe 9 years old, wearing shoes that did not quite fit. "Excuse me, are you Marcus Brooks?" "Yeah," Marcus said, kneeling to her level. Something he had learned from watching William's apology. "What is your name?" "Rosa. I saw you on TV. You beat a billionaire at chess, even though you did not have fancy pieces or anything." "I did. My teacher says I am good at math, but we cannot afford a tutor." Rosa's voice dropped to a whisper. "Does that mean I cannot be good at it anyway?" Marcus felt his heart break and heal simultaneously. He pulled out one of the foundation's application cards that he now carried everywhere. "This is for kids exactly like you," he said, handing it to her. "Kids who are brilliant but need help. You fill this out and we will make sure you get a tutor. Promise. Rose's eyes went wide. Really? Really? And you know what? Being poor does not make you less smart. It just means the world has not seen you yet. But once they do, Marcus smiled, nothing can stop you. After Rosa ran off, clutching the card, William put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. You are doing what I should have been doing for 20 years. You are doing it now, Marcus said simply. That counts. They walked together through the park where a barefoot kid had once played with broken pieces, hoping someone would see him, where a billionaire had learned that wealth without integrity was just expensive emptiness, where a promise had been broken and then, against all odds, kept. The chess pavilion sign was being installed, the James Brooks Memorial Chess Center. Mrs. Rivera wiped her eyes. He would be so proud. He is watching, Marcus said with certainty, and he is smiling. As the sun set over Manhattan, Marcus picked up his grandfather's chess set, broken pieces and all, and headed home. Not to a single room where three people shared one mattress, but to an apartment with windows that opened, heat that worked, and a future that finally felt possible. But 6 months later, the real test came. The grand opening of the James Brooks Memorial Chess Center was attended by 300 people, city officials, chess masters from around the world, news crews from every major network, and most importantly, 150 kids who had enrolled in the program. Marcus stood on the small stage, wearing a new suit that his mother had bought him. His first suit ever. But on his feet, no shoes. Some things did not need to change. William stood beside him, equally nervous. When my grandpa died, Marcus began, his voice carrying across the pavilion. I thought I lost everything. The person who believed in me. The person who saw something in me that nobody else did. The person who taught me that the knight jumps over obstacles. He held up the repaired knight, glue line visible to everyone. But I learned something these past 6 months. You do not lose people who love you. They stay with you, in the things they taught you, in the way they changed you, in the legacy they left behind. Marcus gestured to the pavilion around them. This place exists because my grandpa believed in me, because Mrs. Rivera protected me, because strangers I will never meet decided my story mattered, and because Mr. Sterling learned that it is never too late to do the right thing. William stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. I am not a good man, he said. The room went quiet. I have spent most of my life caring more about money than people, more about winning than integrity. I broke a promise to an 11-year-old boy because I could not stand losing. He looked at Marcus. But this boy, this brilliant, generous, forgiving boy, gave me something I did not deserve. A second chance. And I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to earn it. William pulled out a document. Today, I am signing over 50% of my remaining assets to this foundation. Not just money, buildings, property, resources, everything Marcus and the team need to help every kid who walks through these doors. The crowd erupted in applause. But William held up his hand. That is not the important part. The important part is this. To every kid here, to every parent, to everyone watching, your value is not determined by your bank account. Your worth is not measured in dollars. And your dreams are not limited by your circumstances. He knelt down just as he had at the press conference, so he was eye level with the children in the front row. I learned that from a barefoot kid with a broken chess set, and I will never forget it again. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Marcus found William sitting alone on one of the marble chess tables, staring at the carved sign above the entrance. Thinking about my grandpa? Marcus asked, sitting beside him. Thinking about my father, William said. He died when I was your age. Construction accident. I spent 30 years being angry about it. Angry at the world. Angry at the company that killed him. Angry at being powerless. He turned to Marcus. But your grandpa, he did not leave you anger. He left you love and wisdom and a chess set that changed my life. It changed both our lives, Marcus said. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the last families leave. Parents holding their children's hands, kids clutching new chess sets, hope in eyes that had known too much hardship. Mr. Sterling, Marcus asked, can I tell you something my grandpa told me? Please, he said that in chess and in life, the king is not the most powerful piece. He is the most important piece to protect, because when the king falls, the game is over. William nodded, but he also said, Marcus continued, that a good king does not hide in the corner. A good king stands with his people, protects them, sacrifices for them. And when a good king does that, his people will sacrifice everything to protect him back. William felt tears on his face. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. Marcus smiled. Actually, I had two good teachers. Grandpa James taught me chess, and you taught me forgiveness. I taught you? You showed me that people can change, that mistakes do not have to be forever, that second chances are real if you are brave enough to take them. Marcus stood up. Come on, Mom is making dinner. She said you should come. If you want. William's voice caught. Your mother invited me to dinner? She said anyone who keeps their promises is welcome at our table. William followed Marcus through the pavilion, past the tables where tomorrow 150 kids would learn that talent mattered more than money. That intelligence was not limited by zip code, that dreams were possible even when circumstances said otherwise. At the Brooks' new apartment, a 3-bedroom in a safe neighborhood paid for by the Foundation's family support program, Diana was setting the table. Thomas was cooking, his back finally healed enough to stand comfortably. Mr. Sterling, Diana said warmly, welcome to our home. Thank you for having me, William said, suddenly feeling like the poor one. Not in money, but in something more valuable. This family had nothing 6 months ago, but they had each other. William had billions, but he had been alone. Sit, sit, Thomas said, bringing out plates. Nothing fancy, but there is plenty. Over dinner they talked, not about money or lawsuits or viral videos, but about life. Thomas's new job as a school custodian, Diana's social work classes, Marcus's chess tournament next month, and William found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in years. As he left that night, Marcus walked him to the door. Mr. Sterling, same time Thursday? For our chess lesson? Absolutely. But Marcus, you have to start calling me William. Old habits. Marcus grinned. You still call me kid. Fair point. William started to leave, then turned back. Marcus, thank you. For everything. For what? You were the one who paid the money. No, William shook his head. You gave me something worth more than $100 million. You gave me a reason to be better. Marcus hugged him. Unexpected. Brief, but genuine. Grandpa would have said you were always capable of being better. You just forgot for a while. After William left, Marcus stood at the window, watching the Mercedes drive away. His mother joined him. You like him, do not you? Diana asked. Yeah, Marcus said. I think I do. He made a mistake. But he is trying to fix it. Grandpa always said that is what matters. Not that you fall down, but that you get back up. Your grandpa was right. Mom? Marcus turned to her. Do you think Grandpa would be proud? Of what we did? Of what happened? Diana pulled her son close. Baby, your grandpa is not just proud. He is dancing in heaven. Because you did not just win money. You changed a man's heart. You started a movement. You showed the world that promises matter. She kissed the top of his head. You became exactly what he said you would be. Somebody. That night, Marcus lay in his own bed, in his own room, staring at the ceiling. The broken knight sat on his nightstand, glue line catching the moonlight. Tomorrow, he would wake up in a home that did not leak. His mother would not leave before dawn to clean toilets. His father would not come home in pain. Tomorrow, 150 kids would learn chess for free. Tomorrow, the world would be a little bit better because a barefoot kid refused to accept that broken promises were just how things worked. Tomorrow, the pawn would continue its journey to the other side of the board. But tonight, Marcus Brooks, 11 years old, former homeless chess prodigy, current millionaire and founder of a movement, closed his eyes and whispered to the grandfather he still missed every single day. I did it, Grandpa. I jumped over the obstacle, just like you said I would. And somewhere in a place where broken things are made whole and promises are never broken. James Brooks smiled. Epilogue. 5 years passed like a beautiful dream. Marcus Brooks, 16 years old, stood in Washington Square Park on the anniversary of the game that changed everything. The park looked different now. The permanent pavilion had expanded. 50 marble tables, 300 kids enrolled. a waiting list of 2,000, but Marcus still preferred the old bench. The third one from the fountain, where it all began. William Sterling, 57 now, sat across from him. They still played every Sunday, rain or shine, winter or summer. It was their tradition. Your move, old man, Marcus grinned. Old man, William laughed. I am 57, not 70. You play like you are 70. William moved his knight. The piece jumped over obstacles just like Marcus had done, just like William had finally learned to do. They played in comfortable silence. Around them, the park hummed with life. Children learning chess, parents watching proudly. Mrs. Rivera, now 75, still running community outreach. Jessica Morgan, now director of the foundation, reviewing applications on her tablet. The foundation had grown beyond anyone's imagination. Not just chess anymore, tutoring in every subject, college prep, mental health support, family services, housing assistance. It had helped 5,000 kids in 5 years. 47 of them had become chess masters. Marcus was one of them. At 16, he was the youngest American grandmaster in history. ELO rating of 2,600. He had beaten players 3 times his age, players who had studied chess their entire lives. But every Sunday, he came back to this bench to play with the man who had broken his heart and then spent 5 years putting it back together. Checkmate, Marcus said softly. William studied the board and smiled. You know, I have been playing you for 5 years. I have won exactly 7 times. 8, Marcus corrected. You won last month. Did I? William thought about it. Oh, right, when you were distracted by that girl. Marcus blushed. I was not distracted. You moved your queen into a fork. You are never that careless. William laughed. What is her name? Sarah, Marcus admitted. She is in my calculus class. Sarah, William's voice went soft. That is a beautiful name. It was William's late wife's name, too. A wound that had healed but would never fully disappear. She had died 5 years before Marcus was born. Cancer. William had buried himself in work to avoid the pain, until a barefoot kid taught him that running from pain just created more of it. Ask her out, William said. Life is too short to wait. I do not know. Marcus fidgeted with a chess piece. What if she says no? Then she says no. But at least you will know. William leaned forward. Marcus, you beat me at chess for $100 million in front of the whole world. You can ask a girl to the movies. Fair point. They packed up the pieces carefully. Marcus still used his grandfather's original set. The glue lines were visible on half the pieces now, but he would never replace them. Scars are proof of survival, Mrs. Rivera had said, and Marcus had survived. They all had. As they walked through the park, a young boy approached, maybe 7 years old, Hispanic, nervous. Excuse me, the boy said. Are you Marcus Brooks? That is me. The boy held out a chess piece, a pawn, crudely carved from wood. My dad made this for me. He said you had broken pieces too, and you still became a champion. Marcus knelt down. What is your name? Carlos. Carlos, this piece is beautiful. Did your dad teach you chess? He is teaching me. But we do not have money for lessons. Marcus pulled out a foundation card. You bring this to the pavilion tomorrow. We will get you started. And Carlos, that pawn your dad made, keep it forever, because someday you are going to reach the other side of the board, and you are going to become anything you want to be. The boy ran off, clutching the card like it was made of gold. William watched the interaction with quiet pride. You are good at this. At what? Giving hope. I'd learned from the best. Marcus smiled. You gave me hope when I thought the world was hopeless. No, William shook his head. You gave yourself hope. I just finally lived up to it. They reached the pavilion where a ceremony was beginning. The 5-year anniversary celebration. News crews, city officials, hundreds of families whose lives had been changed. Marcus was scheduled to speak. But first there was a surprise. A car pulled up. A young man stepped out. 29 years old. Dark hair, his father's eyes. Michael Sterling. William froze. His son. The son he had not seen in 8 years. The son who had stopped speaking to him because work always came first. The son who had watched the viral video and called to say, I just watched you do to that kid what you did to me. Dad, Michael said. Michael, William's voice broke. They stood 3 feet apart, a distance that felt like miles. I saw the speech you gave today, Michael said, about the foundation, about Marcus, about how you changed. William nodded, not trusting his voice. I have been watching you for 5 years. Michael continued. Every article, every interview, every Sunday you spend teaching Masi Chitas in the park. And I realized something. He stepped closer. You did change. You actually did it. You became the father I always needed, just 5 years too late for me. But Michael held up a hand. Marcus told me something when he invited me here. He said it is never too late for second chances. That you taught him that. William was crying openly now. So I am here, Dad, if you still want me. William closed the distance and pulled his son into a hug. The kind of hug he should have given 1,000 times before but never did. The kind that said, I am sorry and I love you and I will never let go again. Marcus watched from a distance, his own eyes wet. You did that, William said to Marcus later. You brought him back. No, Marcus said. You brought him back by being someone worth coming back to. The ceremony began. Marcus stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. Families who had been homeless and now had homes. Kids who had been invisible and now had futures. Lives that had been broken and were now being rebuilt. 5 years ago, Marcus began, a man broke a promise to me, and I thought it was the worst thing that could ever happen. He paused. I was wrong. It was the best thing. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd, not because the promise was broken, but because of what happened next. Because people I did not know decided I mattered. Because a man who did wrong decided to do right. Because the world proved that second chances are real. Marcus held up the broken knight. My grandpa carved this piece. When it broke, I thought it was ruined. But Mrs. Rivera taught me that broken things can still work. They just carry their scars with them. He turned to William. Mr. Sterling broke a promise, but then he kept it. And then he kept 1,000 more. He could have walked away, fought in court, hidden behind lawyers, but he did not. He stood up, admitted he was wrong, and spent 5 years proving he meant it. Marcus's voice grew stronger. So to every kid here, to every parent, to everyone watching, if you make a mistake, you can fix it. If you fall down, you can get up. If you break something, you can repair it. It might not look the same, but sometimes the glue lines make it stronger. The applause started small and grew into a roar. After the ceremony, as the sun set over the park for the 1,000th time since that fateful game, Marcus and William sat on their bench one last time. Thank you, William said. For the speech, for everything, thank you, Marcus replied. For teaching me that powerful people can be good people. They just have to choose to be. They sat in silence, watching families leave. Kids carrying new chess sets. Parents carrying hope. Mr. Sterling, Marcus asked, what had happened to the property? The $100 million property you were trying to win? William smiled. I lost it. When the board removed me as CEO, Richard Blackwood took over. He bought it, built luxury condos, made a fortune. Does that bother you? It used to, William admitted. I spent 20 years chasing that property, lost my company trying to keep it. But you know what I got instead? He gestured to the pavilion, to the kids, to Michael, who was talking with Diana and Thomas, to the life he had built from the ruins of his empire. I got everything that actually matters. They stood to leave. One last time, Marcus picked up his grandfather's chess set. Same time next Sunday, he asked. Absolutely, William said. Though I expect you to go easy on me. I am getting old. You are 57, not 70. They both laughed. As Marcus walked home, his phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Hey, want to study together tomorrow? Calculus test is brutal. Marcus smiled and typed back. Yeah, that would be great. Sometimes the bravest move was not a chess tactic. It was asking the girl you liked to study with you. He looked up at the sky, at the first stars appearing in the twilight. Thanks, Grandpa, for teaching me to jump over obstacles, even the ones that scare me. The broken knight was warm in his pocket. The glue line caught the streetlight. And Marcus Brooks, 16 years old, grandmaster, millionaire, and proof that pawns could become queens, walked home to a family who loved him, to a future that was bright, to a world that had learned, because of him, that promises were not just words. They were the foundation of everything that mattered. Tomorrow he would wake up and continue the work. The foundation, the chess lessons, the kids who needed to know they were seen. But tonight he would sleep well, because the king had learned his lesson. The pawn had reached the other side, and the game, the beautiful, impossible game, was finally complete. The end, Bab. Word count, part 3 plus epilogue, 6,500 words.